Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this Warcraft Rumble dungeon guide, I'm going to take a look at Gnomeregan on a Beast Week, and I have some splendid armies here for you. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to build a Beast army for this, showing you red clears with mediocre relics all the way up to minus 2.7 levels, so let's go. But first, let's take a quick look at boss mechanics. The first boss, Crowd Pummeler, has a nasty spin attack that's going to throw your minis away, and if any ground-based minis get thrown out of the platform, well, they are gone. Even if they're a big mini, they're just gone. Flying minis, even if they're thrown out of the platform, they can just fly back to the boss, so they can fight pretty effectively. Then there's also these shield devices, one over here and another one spawns over here, and if you leave these up for a little while, then a free safe pilot is going to spawn for the boss. Grab that up and go ham. So you want to pick these up at least occasionally. This one is more for offensive uses and this one is more for defensive uses. You don't always have to pick them up though. Then there's a couple of chests and some gold. Typically in this map you want to take this stone, because from this stone you can launch attacks from two directions, and then you have a couple of ways to beat this boss. Any ranged DPS really will do. Ranged DPS from two directions, and then there's just going to be so much damage that the boss is going to be overwhelmed. Gargoyles can do fine. Chimera is excellent. Some of those flyers can be really strong at this boss. But the real boss of Gnomeregan is the second boss, Electrocutioner, by far the most difficult boss in this dungeon, by far the most difficult boss in the game, in any of the dungeons. So yeah, there's these two rocket towers. Rocket towers nowadays, they deal physical damage, they deal siege damage, so that's physical. And then there's this mist around the rocket towers, and this is going to deal elemental damage, but only to your minis. And even after you take a rocket tower, it's still going to deal damage to your minis. So yeah, there's that. The boss itself deals huge amounts of elemental damage, so you kind of want to have resistant tanks, so any resistant tanks that will tank the boss while your damage dealers start to deal damage. But then there's also overwhelming swarms of minis. The boss has just so much stuff and it's all coming at you. And then there's this chest in the middle, but in order to actually get the chest in the middle you would have to get the rocket towers, and even if you take the rocket towers it can be really difficult to actually hold on to them. Anyway, you try to take the rocket towers, at least one, preferably both. Then you try to start attacking the boss, try to turn it around with a resistant tank and have your damage dealers come from behind. Ideally you can also get stuff going from tree lanes so that you will be able to get some of these chests, so you will deny the gold from the boss and you will get some of that gold, but this one is super difficult. And finally there's the third boss, Mekgineer Thermaplugg, which isn't really even a boss, it's just like a game of whack-a-mole, because there are these amp switches. Summons a walking bomb when captured, cannot be claimed by flying. So the boss cannot be damaged, boss has a force field around it, but these amp switches will spawn on both sides and then you try to destroy as many of them as possible. So this is a game of whack-a-mole. You're sending troops right and left and right, and you're just sending troops all over the place so that you will have good coverage of the field, so that whenever amp switches spawn then you will be the one who will be able to destroy them. And you try to send kobolds to mine as often as possible, because there are these two gold veins that are very accessible from your base, and mining constantly is the best way to ensure that you can keep sending troops on both sides. And when you just do that for a while, then the boss is just going to die. I have two armies for you here. Both of these cleared a red difficulty dungeon without any super strong relics, but let's take a look at them and discuss their differences a little bit and various options that you have. So first I have this Murk-Eye army, and this consists of Chimera, Quillboar, Ghoul, Witch Doctor, Goblin Sappers and Safe Pilot. So on the first map, I mean, Chimera is just an incredible mini for the first map, and now that it's Beast Week, it's super thematic to use Chimera. So Chimera is just going to kill the first boss pretty much. Of course, also sending out ranged DPS from both sides can help. I have the Witch Doctor here. There could be some alternatives for this one as well. But for the first boss, Chimera does the majority of the work. Then there's the second boss, and we really need to take those rocket towers pretty quickly. And how can we take rocket towers? If we have some kind of double damage relic, then we can do like well pegs and safe pilot kind of things on those. But if we don't have a double damage relic, then there's sappers, which is what I have here. There's gargoyle, which is great if you have no talent. Sappers are the strongest when they have rocket boots talent. Gargoyle could be an alternative with no talents, although then the other arm would also need to be fine-tuned a little bit, because gargoyle costs so much. And then like meat wagon could also do bunch of damage, although it also needs some kind of distraction. So with those options, we're going in with Sappers. Sappers are going to take some towers, but as you start pushing up, Sappers will not be able to take the tower alone, then they will need a little bit of help. Safe Pilot is here, for example, that can provide some of that help. And once we have some towers, then we're trying to push at the boss. And with this army, I have the Quillboar here. Quillboar can turn the boss around. And I have Chimera and I have Witch Doctor. Primarily the Chimera. It's going to deal damage to the boss. Witch Doctor, if you happen to get Coated Spearhead, I have some Coated Spearhead footage for you, then Witch Doctor can also be quite nice. Ghoul is here for some cheap defensive tools because you're going to get swarmed so much, so just trying to defend a little bit. And then the third boss, well, you just send minis on both sides, especially ground minis, so there's not much to talk about when it comes to that one. Alternatives to this mix, well, you could use Pyromancer instead of the Witch Doctor. That's perfectly viable. Pyromancer can also replace the Ghoul potentially. And then if you don't want to use the Ghoul, you might also use Defias Bandits. You could also use like Defias Bandits and Pyromancer instead of Ghoul and Witch Doctor. That sort of alterations would still keep the main idea of this army intact, but gives you a couple of other minis that you could try. And then I have this approach, which is slightly stronger. It's based on kind of the same ideas because I have the Chimera, I have the Quillboar, I have the Sappers, and I have the Safe Pilot. So some of these tools are the same, but now I also have Fire Elemental together with Shaman with the Earth Shield talent. Fire Elemental, now that the rocket towers deal physical damage, your tank has got to be armored if you want to tank them. Then, well, you could have an armored tank, you could have like a Molten Giant. Maybe you could try something like an Abomination. Abomination is a little bit on the expensive side though. But Fire Elemental is resistant, so it's good against the boss, and if it gets armored from the Shaman, then it can tank the boss and it can tank the towers, so that's one pretty good mix right there. So with this army, I still use Sappers to take the towers on the second boss, but now I also have the power of the Fire Elemental, tanking some of those towers, fighting for those towers, bringing a little bit more stability to the mix. And then resistant tanks, and still the Chimera, the primary damage dealer that's actually going to kill the boss. At least I hope it will. And that's the second type of army. I think this is a little bit stronger, but it does require the Earth Shield talent to be used. And this is what these armies look like in action. So let's start with Murk-Eye. We're up against the Crowd Pummeler and I want to get that Meeting Stone. I haven't been offered a Quillboar, so I sent that one over there. I also want to move over to the chest, and I know that the device is going to spawn pretty quickly, so sending some kind of cheap ground-based unit out there is going to pick up the device, and then it's also going to grab the chest. I'm trying to get my Chimera out there to start getting some power towards the boss, but that actually failed this time quite miserably because suddenly Mekgineer is actually pretty strong against Chimera, would you believe? Because Chimera is going to be focused on the bear is going to keep walking, and that means that even though Chimera can shoot at two targets, it's not going to shoot at the dwarf, and then Chimera can just die to the Mekgineer. That's pretty unfortunate. Here I have an opportunity to drop some Sappers. They will pick up the shield and maybe deal a little bit of damage, although Sappers are not my main damage dealers by any means against this boss, but here they do add a little bit of damage there. But Chimera is going to be the main way that I have to kill this boss. So we're sending out some units, just sending out units from the Meeting Stone through both sides. There also timing was pretty crucial. I was able to get that shield before the enemy came in there, and denying the shields from the enemy is just useful. Although I'm not sure if I have enough time to grab that one. I'm sending an unbound because I'm not sure whether the Sappers would make it in time. Now we have a Chimera that's going towards the boss. If I had the Quillboar here, I could distract the boss a little bit and allow Chimera have a bit more time on the target. But now, as you can see, Chimera gets thrown away, but because Chimera is a flying mini, then it's just chilling, doesn't mind. And also Witch Doctor doing some beautiful work, giving some shields to minis. And here we have a good assault coming. We have multiple Chimeras approaching the boss, and the boss is just under so much pressure and it crumbles. Then we arrive at Electrocutioner, and I know this is going to be rough. I'm trying to see where does Electrocutioner send its attack, and because there was some units at the middle, I figure, okay, I will be able to use Safe Pilot to deny some of those so that there won't be as much of a push at the middle. I still don't have good minis that I would like to send out into an attack. I don't have access to my sappers, so I'm trying to buy a little bit of time, sending the ghoul behind my base. And now there's an opening on the left side, on the right side, sorry, and I sent sappers over there, and now sappers were able to grab that because sappers were only one level below the tower. As your sappers are more levels below the tower, then they will need some support, so then you need to send sappers together with a quill bore, together with a safe pilot, for example, in order to be able to grab that tower. Anyway, one tower has now been taken, and now there's a big fight in the middle, which allows me to have a little bit of time to get sappers on the other tower. I'm sending Quillbore out there to fight against the ground unit so that it will not prevent the tower from completing, and life is now looking pretty sweet overall. But obviously you can very easily lose this even if you have towers. Like I already just lost that tower right there. It didn't take long. The towers just lost almost immediately. But I was able to send some more sappers. Sappers are nice because they're really quick, and if you lose a tower, you can sometimes just have some minis fighting there against the enemy minis, and then you can send your sappers to grab the tower back before it even finishes for the enemy. So that's a really nice feature. And here we're so far mostly focused on trying to fight for the towers. I was thinking, okay, do I need to send sappers to take the tower back? But I don't. Would have been nice to have something there in the middle so that I would have been able to get the chest. I've been giving a little bit too many chests for the enemy here. But now I'm sending my damage dealers over there, and I'm trying to get to a point where I could find I'm trying to find the quill bore to turn the boss around, and now there's my quill bore. I turn the boss around and I have damage dealers coming. There is the coated spearhead right now on that witch doctor, so witch doctor is going to deal a whole chunk of poison stacks, and now we have the poison stacks, and just look at the poison. There's so much poison on the boss that the boss is just going to go down. Which leaves us with only Mekgineer to go, and now it's just going to be left and right and left and right and send some minis all over the place and remember to mine. And yeah, what else can I say about this one? I'm trying to actually get some Murk-Eye action here. Getting a few Murlocs out there sounds like it's a nice idea. But overall, not a whole lot interesting is happening. I'm sending a Chimera. Chimera cannot claim those amp switches, but I sent the Chimera out there anyway because I realized that Molten Giant is actually potentially going to be a problem. So I will need to get some additional DPS on that Molten Giant. And Chimera is doing a splendid job there. Alright, Chimera did handle that. I'm able to cycle a little bit to get to mining again. But now I have nobody on the left side, which is not a desirable position. I'm actually all out of stuff on both sides, but I have Murk-Eye coming, so I figure I'm just actually going to go with a Murk-Eye push here. Get a few Murlocs out there, get good control of both sides at the same time. And here we go with all of these Murlocs. Sadly, Murlocs are really fast, which means that it won't take long for Murlocs to be out of the picture again. And that's fine, we be chilling. Waiting for another Murk-Eye push now that there seems to be plenty of time. Sending out some minis. Sending out some minis also from the back, so that it will take them longer to push through. And the idea here that those Murlocs are going to kill all the enemies in the front, and then I will still have some minis coming from the back. And we have been able to get into a pretty good rhythm actually here, and things look really nice. I'm going to just do that again. Drop a few minis out there at various positions, and a miner again. So minis, mining, minis, mining. That's everything we do. And we should have... do we have enough damage already? I thought we did, but actually we need one more. But here it comes, and the final bombs come in, and boom, that's Gnomeregan. Red difficulty. And now you ask, okay, we had one, but what about the second red difficulty? So let's put this dungeon one step further, one more level of difficulty, and with Charlga, So now we're at minus 2.7, which is totally bonkers for a dungeon like this, without having a top tier relic like lifesteal. But let's see. If somebody can do it, then Chimera, Charlga, Armored Fire Elemental, maybe they can do it. Let's see what happens. So here we go. We're again fighting for the Meeting Stone. The Fire Elemental is actually not playing a major role in this first boss, because the first boss is just going to throw it around. The main thing for the Fire Elemental is just to fight for that Meeting Stone and fight some defensive battles. It doesn't necessarily need to engage the boss at all. It's only trying to escort my other minis, most notably the Chimera, towards the boss. Because now, as you can see, there's a Chimera, and that Chimera was able to pick up the shield, so it had some good uptime on the boss. And now I have 2 Chimeras coming at the boss. So the Fire Elemental did its job. It secured the stone and it started escorting Chimeras towards the boss. And now with Chimera action going in, and boom, that boss is down. But the real challenge awaits. So let's go check out some pure misery against the Electrocutioner. I needed a few attempts at this, obviously, because this should have been impossible. But let's see how it works out. So we have an Armored Fire Elemental here. That is an excellent start. I sent the Armored Fire Elemental to the same side where Electrocutioner is trying to push, so that I will counter its push, and simultaneously I'm also going to start an attack. So let's try to do that. We have the Fire Elemental, which is actually not doing very well. It's almost dead. We do get the base down, but the Fire Elemental is lost. But I have another Fire Elemental coming, so okay. May have lost the tower, but that is hopefully just temporary. I have the armored and resistant Fire Elemental out there. It's going to be able to handle a lot of damage. Luckily, Electrocutioner is sending a lot of minis trying to secure this tower. I'm sending a lot of minis to secure that tower, so our armies are going to meet, and I believe that my Fire Elemental and Chimera army is stronger than Electrocutioner's army. That's my belief. That's what we're counting on. We're trying to get there. Now I'm trying to turn the Electrocutioner around as well, because I had some nice Chimera action there, but didn't quite get through. But here, because of the talent that I have on Charlga, when I played the Sappers for 5, that meant that the Sappers were higher level, and then the Sappers were actually able to take down the tower. If they weren't, then I would have needed to send the safe pilot behind them so that the tower would go down. But alright, now I have both towers, and I have another Armored Fire Elemental attacking, and I have another Chimera attacking. And we're trying to get a push out there. There's a chest in the middle, and I want that gold. I managed to get that gold, but ouch, boss shoots the big gun, and my Chimera goes down again. Well, at this point I do have both towers. That attack at the boss probably was not good. I think I should have used that to kill the Spiderlings, because, yeah, defending against those Spiderlings can be really tricky, especially now that the rocket towers no longer deal elemental damage, so Spiderlings are just happy tanking a bunch of damage from the rocket towers. Anyway, we have another Fire Elemental push going, and we get some mining action going. I'm trying to get to the Quillboar before the Chimera moves too close to the boss, but I am 1 second too late. I'm not 1 second too late. Quillboar turns the boss around, Chimera survived that one hit, and now we have some Chimera action in. Chimera is dealing damage to the boss, boss is getting poisoned, dealt damage to, everything is looking wonderful. Well, the boss did survive that, but overall, this is going surprisingly well right now. I'm able to push, I'm able to hold the towers. Very, very often you cannot hold the towers. I lost one tower once, but only once, so that was surprisingly good. Now we have the Chimera going in, and then I want the Quillboar, start tanking the boss. Chimera, please kill the boss. No! The boss turned around just enough to... Yeah, well, we have a resistant Fire Elemental coming from the other side, because we're not going to give up on this. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Over time, this is a good overtime. There are good and bad overtimes in this map. When you get to overtime in a position like this where you control both towers, then that's actually pretty good for you, because you're able to typically defend the towers when you're in a position like this with the additional gold from the overtime, and you're also able to push. If one of the towers was almost dead, or if one of the towers had been lost, then you would suffer from great pushes from the boss. But in a position like this, typically you're able to defend and you're able to get an attack going. Although this is not looking super great. At this point, I'm actually going to ditch the left tower. I'm going to focus on the right tower. I'm just going to send stuff from the right tower. I can send some stealth sappers. Hopefully there won't be any huge attack on them, and there won't, and the boss actually goes down. Now the dungeon is basically won. I think I was still shaking a little bit after that victory and wasn't properly focused on the final battle. But it is actually possible to also lose against Mekgineer. I have lost against Mekgineer a few times. Luckily, typically you have at least 2 attempts, so if you lose the first time, you can always do it again. And this is the first attempt that we have at Mekgineer. I'm not happy with the fire elemental on the left side. I should have positioned it on the right side. I'm just playing a little bit sloppy, because you want a balance of power on both sides. Right now, fire elemental, we could have used a tank. Definitely could have used a tank on the right side, but now I don't have one over there. So that wasn't great. And now no, I positioned the Charlga a little bit too close to the other Charlga. Now just mistakes are being made. And I am losing control of the map. This is not going well. But we can work on this. We can work. Alright, that was a good safe pilot, and that was good quill bore. And those are really important moves. Now I have a bit of time. Should have positioned this Charlga on the right side though. Again, do pay attention to where the enemy armies are and where you need to send your reinforcements. Because this one really hasn't been great. Okay, well, I'll try to send some more troops out there. Fireman also will not beat a Prowler, so that's not good. Many things are going wrong right now. And actually my base is almost destroyed. So I need to sharpen up my moves a little bit if I want to win from here. And it should still be possible. I still believe. Like, we can steal that one. Yep, we stole that right under their nose. That Null couldn't kill it in one hit, and then I was able to explode it. But I did lose that one. That's bad. Can we get this one? We should be able to get this one right. I'm not actually sure if we can. We could. Okay, that was very important. Because if I didn't get that, I think I would have lost. And now we can send a safe pilot on that side, get that one, and there's a bomb at my base, but there's also a bomb at the boss, and it's a victory. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.